Mark Winters never expected that a simple trip to the grocery store would change his life forever. As he stood in the checkout line with his 7-year-old daughter Emma, a small voice behind them asked a question that would shatter his heart and rebuild it in ways he never imagined. "Can I come home with you?" If you've ever wondered about the power of a single moment to transform lives, this story will show you how one decision can ripple through generations. Stay with me until the end, I promise it's worth every second, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to see more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. The voice belonged to Lily, a thin girl with tangled hair and clothes that had seen better days. At just 9 years old, her eyes carried a weariness that no child should know. Mark turned, confused by the question, while Emma peered curiously at the girl who was now nervously shifting from one worn-out shoe to the other. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" Mark asked gently. "Can I come home with you?" Lily repeated, her voice barely audible above the beeping scanners and shopping cart wheels. "Just for dinner maybe? I'm really hungry." Mark noticed the girl was alone, clutching a single apple she clearly couldn't afford. His first instinct was to look around for her parents, but the desperation in her eyes told him everything he needed to know. "Where are your parents, sweetheart?" he asked, kneeling down to her level. Lily's eyes darted to the floor. "Mom's sick again. She sleeps a lot. Sometimes she forgets about dinner." Mark felt his throat tighten. As a single father who had been raising Emma alone since his wife's death 3 years ago, he understood struggle. But this was different. This was neglect. "Dad," Emma tugged at his sleeve, her voice a whisper. "She can come home with us, right? We're having spaghetti." Mark hesitated only for a moment before nodding. "Of course she can." What Mark didn't know then was that this simple act of kindness would unravel a story of heartbreak, resilience, and ultimately, hope. After paying for his groceries, and Lily's apple, plus a sandwich and juice box she devoured in the car, Mark called social services. The emergency worker who answered sounded exhausted, explaining that without immediate danger, they couldn't do much until Monday. It was Friday evening. Just one weekend, Mark told himself as he drove both girls home. We can give her one good weekend. Lily sat silently in the back seat next to Emma, who chattered excitedly about her toys and books. Mark watched through the rearview mirror as Lily's shoulders gradually relaxed, her eyes widening at Emma's descriptions of their home. Their modest 3-bedroom house wasn't fancy. Mark had struggled to keep it after Sarah died, but it was clean, warm, and filled with love. When they arrived, Lily stood in the doorway, taking everything in as if she'd stepped into a palace. "You can wash up first," Mark said, showing her to the bathroom. "I'll start dinner." When Lily emerged 20 minutes later, Mark barely recognized her. The dirt was gone from her face, revealing a spray of freckles across her nose. She'd attempted to comb her tangled hair with her fingers. But what struck him most was her expression, a mixture of embarrassment and gratitude that no child should have to feel for basic necessities. "Thank you, sir," she said formally. "You can call me Mark," he replied, setting plates on the table. "And you're very welcome." During dinner, Emma did most of the talking, while Lily ate with careful, measured bites, as if afraid the food might disappear. Mark noticed how she slipped a dinner roll into her pocket when she thought no one was looking. "There's plenty more," he assured her. "And you can take some home if you'd like." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly blinked them away. "My mom tries," she whispered. "She really does. But sometimes she gets really sad and can't get out of bed." Mark recognized the signs of depression, possibly addiction. His late wife had been a social worker, and he'd learned enough from her to understand the complexity of such situations. "Where's your dad?" Emma asked innocently. "Emma," Mark started, but Lily shook her head. "It's okay. I don't know who my dad is. Mom says he left before I was born." That night, After making up the guest room bed with fresh sheets, Mark called his sister Claire, a family lawyer. As he described the situation, she sighed heavily. "Mark, you know you can't just keep someone else's child, right? Even with the best intentions." "I know," he replied, watching from the hallway as Emma showed Lily her bookshelf. "But I couldn't just leave her there, Claire. You should see her. She's been neglected for who knows how long." "I understand," Claire's voice softened. "But be careful. Get social services involved properly. Document everything." The weekend passed in a blur of simple pleasures that Lily seemed to experience for the first time. A proper bath with bubbles. 3 reliable meals a day. Saturday morning cartoons with pancakes. A trip to the park where she hesitated before joining Emma on the swings, as if waiting for permission to be a child. By Sunday evening, Mark had learned more about Lily's life. Her mother, Jessica, had once been a waitress but lost her job months ago. They'd been evicted twice in the past year. Lily hadn't attended school regularly since first grade, though she loved reading the few books they owned. "I try to take care of Mom," she explained as Mark helped her with a simple math worksheet he'd printed out. "Sometimes she cries a lot. Sometimes she has friends over who are scary." Mark's heart sank further with each revelation. When Monday morning arrived, he called in sick to work and contacted social services again, this time with more urgency and details. The social worker who arrived, Ms. Patel, was kind but direct. "We'll need to check on her mother, possibly arrange emergency placement if the situation is as described." "Can't she stay here?" Mark asked, surprising himself with the question. Ms. Patel gave him a measured look. "Are you offering to be an emergency foster placement, Mr. Winters?" The question hung in the air. Mark hadn't considered fostering. After Sarah died, it had been all he could do to keep himself together for Emma's sake. But watching Lily and Emma coloring together at the kitchen table, he felt something shift inside him. "What would that involve?" he asked. Hours later, after a whirlwind of phone calls, paperwork, and a home safety check, Mark found himself driving with Ms. Patel and Lily to her apartment. The building was run down, with graffiti covering the walls and trash littering the stairwell. Lily's mother was indeed home, barely conscious on a mattress in the sparsely furnished apartment. The place smelled of alcohol and neglect. Empty bottles and fast food containers were scattered across the floor. "Mom?" Lily called softly, approaching the mattress. "Mom, wake up. There are people here." Jessica stirred, her eyes unfocused as she struggled to sit up. She was young, probably in her late 20s, but looked much older. When she finally registered the presence of strangers, panic flashed across her face. "Who are you? What do you want?" she demanded, her words slurring. Ms. Patel stepped forward, explaining the situation calmly. Mark stood back, feeling like an intruder in this broken home. He watched as Jessica's initial defiance crumbled into tears. "I'm trying," she sobbed. "I love my daughter. I just can't. I can't do this anymore." What followed was both heartbreaking and necessary. Jessica admitted she needed help, for addiction, for depression. She agreed to enter a treatment program, acknowledging that Lily needed stability she couldn't provide right now. "Will you take care of her?" Jessica asked Mark directly, her eyes suddenly clear and piercing. "Will you promise she'll be safe?" Mark nodded, his throat tight. "I promise." That evening, as Lily settled into the guest room, now temporarily her room, Mark sat on the edge of her bed, helping her unpack the few belongings they'd collected from the apartment. "Your mom is going to get help," he explained gently. "And while she does that, you'll stay with us. Is that okay?" Lily looked up at him, her small face serious. "Will I have to leave when she gets better?" Mark hesitated, not wanting to make promises he couldn't keep. "We'll figure that out together, with your mom and the social workers." But no matter what happens, you'll always have a place here if you need it. Lily's eyes filled with tears, but these were different from the tears of hunger or fear he'd seen before. No one's ever said that to me before, she whispered. Mark felt his own eyes growing wet. Well, I mean it. And Emma and I are really glad you're here. As he turned to leave, Lily's small voice stopped him. Mark? Thank you for taking me home with you. The words hit him like a physical force, reminding him of that first question in the grocery store. He turned back, smiling through his emotion. Thank you for asking to come. The following months weren't easy. There were nightmares and meltdowns, meetings with social workers and therapists, court appearances and school adjustments. Lily struggled with trust, with rules, with believing that this safety wouldn't suddenly disappear. Jessica's recovery had setbacks and breakthroughs. She missed some visits and made others, gradually becoming more reliable as her treatment progressed. Mark found himself in the unexpected position of not just fostering Lily, but also supporting Jessica's recovery, driving her to job interviews and helping her find stable housing. 6 months turned into a year. Emma and Lily became inseparable, more like sisters than friends. Mark's initial emergency foster certification became a standard license. Their lives adjusted to a new normal. On a warm spring day, just over a year after that fateful grocery store encounter, Jessica came for her weekly visit. She looked healthy, clear-eyed, with a steady job and 9 months of sobriety behind her. After dinner, while the girls played in the backyard, Jessica turned to Mark with determination in her eyes. I want to thank you, she said. Not just for taking care of Lily, but for not judging me. For giving me a chance to get better. Mark nodded, understanding the courage it took for her to say those words. Everyone deserves a second chance. I've been thinking, Jessica continued, watching her daughter through the window. I'm stable now. I could take Lily back. Mark felt his heart constrict. He'd known this day might come, had prepared for it, but the reality still hurt. But, Jessica added, I've seen how happy she is here. How much she loves Emma, and you. How much progress she's made in school. She took a deep breath. I'm wondering if there's another way. A way where she doesn't have to choose between us. That conversation led to an arrangement none of them had anticipated. Jessica moved into an apartment just a few blocks away. Lily split her time between both homes, with Mark maintaining primary custody while Jessica continued strengthening her parenting skills and career. It wasn't conventional, but it worked. 2 broken families had somehow formed a larger, stronger one. 3 years later, on Lily's 12th birthday, Mark received a card that made him break down in tears. Inside, in Lily's careful handwriting, were the words, "Thank you for being the dad I never had. Thank you for bringing me home." That evening, after the birthday cake had been eaten and the presents opened, Mark sat on the porch swing watching Emma and Lily chase fireflies in the yard. Jessica sat beside him, both of them content in the family they had created together. Do you ever think about that day in the grocery store? Jessica asked. How different all our lives would be if Lily hadn't been brave enough to ask that question. Mark nodded, remembering the small, hungry girl who had changed everything. One question. One moment of courage. That's all it took. Sometimes the most profound changes in our lives come from the smallest moments of bravery, a child gathering the courage to ask for help, an adult finding the strength to say yes when it would be easier to walk away. Lily's simple question, "Can I come home with you?" had created ripples that transformed not just her life, but the lives of everyone she touched. As Mark watched the girls laughing in the twilight, he knew that family wasn't always about blood. Sometimes it was about choice. About opening your door, your heart, and your life to someone who needed it most. And in that opening, finding exactly what you never knew you were missing. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us of the power of compassion and the family we choose. Remember that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change a life forever, maybe even your own.